Welcome to the final week 12 of this particular course. In this module, we will try to understand how to plan collaborative learning experience and pedagogy of learning through games. I have planned 4 units as part of this particular module. One is, we'll try to understand what is collaborative learning. Then we'll try to look at game-based learning and what is the best practices associated with integrating games and collaboration for the purpose of learning. And finally, we'll look at some practical considerations in terms of implementation. Let us begin by trying to understand what is collaborative learning. So, collaborative learning is essentially an approach where we do group activities for the purpose of learning, right? So, there is always some kind of a common learning goal that is included in collaborative learning. So, the key emphasis of collaborative learning is to share the importance of teamwork, the interdependence that is required for solving problems, and of course owning individual accountability and also shared responsibility. There are plenty of benefits that we can think of. It really mirrors the industry activity, the way the industry works, because there is no place in the industry where somebody can work really individually. Of course, these days corporations, organizations are creating specific roles called individual contributors, but that comes at a very senior level. But more always at the fresher level or the entry level of professional life, one should always be able to work in a team, right? So this is collaborative learning. Incorporating collaborative learning into the overall learning experience is now a standard expectation from organizations at the time of recruitment. This also gives a deeper understanding for people how to deal with diversity in terms of the team composition, in terms of the team's abilities, right? So, in terms of the team's attitudes, right? So, these are all aspects that one would come across in successfully solving problems in a collaborative setup. This definitely improves the soft skills of the learners, of the students, right? So, communication, so there could be lots of verbal, non-verbal communicational aspects that comes into the picture. In fact, all courses, programs these days incorporate soft skill training, right? So, this is a great opportunity to put it to use, the training that they have received in soft skills, be it in communication, problem solving ability, right? Even conflict resolution, right? So, when there are multiple opinions that are there, for multiple approaches to solve a problem, how do you talk it out? How do you choose the best solution, right? It is not as if the person having the best CGPA will make all the decisions, right? So, this also brings out the ability, leadership qualities amongst the students. Finally, it increases the engagement of the students in the learning activities as such, right? So, if all the learning is centered around attending classes, lectures and writing exams, then there is a risk of disengagement of the learners from the course activities. So, definitely collaborative learning activities will increase participation and engagement levels for the students, and in turn increase the motivation levels as well. So, how do we design effective group work? So, the first important part of it is the formation of the groups themselves, right? So there are multiple thought processes and approaches that we can use, right? So for one thing, this kind of a group activities can be incorporated into elective courses, right? So even it could be in core courses as well. But the point is, how do you create the groups so that it is an effective learning tool, right? So now we can think of heterogeneous versus homogeneous kind of groups, right? So for example, when you talk about the homogeneous skills, we can form groups based on people having the same skill levels. That is one way of creating a homogeneous group. And so that there is effectively as a group, there is nobody left out, and everybody is motivated to contribute equally. So that is one way of looking at it, because if they are at the same level of skills, then what happens is, irrespective of what level they are, now if the group of highly skilled people come together, then they will have a good amount of synergy to be able to have a good learning from each other and deliver the project successfully. Along similar lines, even if the people are not fully equipped, fully skilled, but as long as all of them have the same set of skill levels, then all of them can spend the equal amount of time in quickly coming up to speed in learning the skills, so that effectively they are together. So which means that there will be lesser chances of frustration of those who have better skills and waiting for those who have lesser skills to start contributing, right? So that is the homogeneous approach. The homogeneous approach can be used effectively when all of them are expected to do. The work division is such that all of them are expected to do the same kind of work. Okay, and another approach could be that to take the heterogeneous levels, right? So when you take the heterogeneous skills for forming the group, then this will be more suitable if you divide the work in such a way that each individual is given a distinct responsibility with very little overlap across multiple roles. So what will happen is that in that case, right, the skill levels themselves do not come into picture, right? So each individual contributor within that group will have to pick up the skills as needed, so that they fulfill their obligations and responsibility, which means that the likelihood of somebody waiting for somebody else is never really the case, right? So this also motivates and encourages them, saying that okay, that team member is already close to fulfilling his or her responsibility, so they will also motivate themselves to quickly complete the responsibility that is assigned. So we can think of mixing different skill levels, backgrounds, and even perspectives and approaches, right? So that is the homogeneous versus heterogeneous. So we can choose some kind of a mixed approach as well. Okay, and the size of these groups, for it to be effective, again from experience, we can see that it is 3 to 5 members is probably a good one for a semester long group activity, right? So that is possibly one of the ways. Now when we are trying to form the groups, we have to also assign, it will be useful to assign roles to individuals within the group, right? So there are, again, if you use the industry kind of an approach, an effective industry group formation, there are designated people who will, for example, facilitate all the meetings and interactions, and ensure that all the members are there. So there will be somebody who is actually make diligent notes of all the happenings that are happening, as part of the planning, as part of the execution, right? Everything needs to be documented. And there needs to be some kind of a timekeeper, not timekeeper just for specific meetings so that they are effective, but to also keep an eye on the overall project schedule, with respect to the people's availability and so on. And we also use this term called devil's advocate, right? Because one of the disadvantages or the pitfalls of group work is that is what is known as groupthink, right? So groupthink is where nobody questions the decisions of the individuals of the group, right? So everybody says that, okay, so that person has said something, maybe we will go with that, right? So which means that there is very little scope for validation of some of those decisions that are happening. So it is always useful to designate one person whose only responsibility is to play what we call as the devil's advocate. So that is probably not a nice title to give somebody, but then the idea is that their responsibility is to raise questions, right? But of course, in the process of giving that responsibility of the devil's advocate, it is important to ensure that that particular role is not disruptive and actually holds the team back. So it has to be a constructive criticism or feedback mechanism that has to be incorporated into the overall mix of activities, right? So this also ensures that there is sufficient participation. As I said, irrespective of whether you have formed a heterogeneous group or a homogeneous group, so they should be able to contribute productively to the group activity so that we don't have people who are left out. There is also this important element of establishing interdependence, right? When we create these group activities, I have had experience wherein suddenly, all of a sudden, somebody who is extremely smart and fast will come and say, sir, I don't need this whole team. I can complete this whole project activity on my own. Please allow me to do so, right? So that is where we have to, for one thing, communicate that the idea is not really the completion of that project or activity in itself, but learn the ability to work in a team. And so one other way of saying is to seed these interdependence into the projects itself, right? As part of one of the critical success factors, right? You should say that yes, we all know that each individual possibly is capable of completing the whole project on their own. But then we have to communicate that that is not really the point. The point is to ensure that they all are able to work together. And so by design, you put those interdependence. We say that, if I am developing a software project, you say that, okay, you are responsible to design the screen for this and nothing more. So that is where your responsibility stops, and somebody else is responsible for developing the back end of the software. Otherwise, along similar lines, if you are doing a mechanical engineering project, so you say that you are responsible for this specific component of this machine or with this particular tool that you are creating, and somebody else is going to be responsible for the other part. So you are dependent on each other. So that you all work together to make this to succeed, or to even to move forward. Okay. Which also means that we have to establish very clear goals and deliverables. And I would like to caution that this is where the mere success of the project itself may not be the only deliverable or only goal for this particular project. So you have to be wary of that. So if you end up saying that, okay, I am going to measure the success of your project merely by the final product that you create, final deliverable that you give, then what may happen is it may cause two kinds of problems, right, which actually compound into a larger issue. So there will be people who are very fast, very enthusiastic, very keen, who may take on the responsibilities to complete this whole thing. And this may also highly demotivate and discourage people who are not that fast, that capable at that point in time, to say that, okay, what matters is the final marks that we get for based on the final deliverable. We might as well not disturb the person who is doing it, right? So that is that's a tendency that we have to be very conscious of and to avoid. So we have to set very clear goals for the whole project and also at the individual level. Okay. So what are the instructors' role in these projects? These days, right, so we also stop using the term teacher. We say that we are more of facilitators, right? So which means that we have to be true to the term that is called as a project guide, right? So which means that obviously as course instructors, we definitely know what is a sure shot way of achieving success for that particular project. But then this is not our project as instructors, right? It is the students' projects. So we have to ensure that we wear the hat of a guide and not really dictate not be very prescriptive about how to complete these activities, right? Which means that so we have to be there. We have to be able to ask probing questions. We have to be able to observe. And we definitely have to intervene, especially as I said, we have to ensure that there are enough room for conflict resolution, right? So there has to be conflict, right? When I say conflict, it is more about conflict of opinion, conflict of approaches and so on, not really fight between the team members, right? So we are talking about that kind of a conflict, and the conflict resolution, the instructor has to be there to guide this whole process. Once again, not necessarily dictating that you are right, you are wrong, but ensure that there is consensus that is achieved as part of this resolution. And all of this is possible only when we as instructors are monitoring the group activities very closely. Okay, so we have to, I have seen setup wherein the group activities are done in a large hall, and the layout of the seating arrangement itself is that the teams will sit within groups discussing. Make sure that if you are taking that approach, you take a quieter room, a room which is not disturbing the ongoing classes, because we do expect them to speak, and it can get quite noisy. But and as a course instructor, so we should move around, we should circulate, we should spend a few seconds, maybe a minute or two, simply listening to what is going on, just to see who is what are the dynamics associated with it, who is speaking, who is not speaking, right? And of course, if some heated discussion is going on, you offer your support, you be there, right? But so this is the monitoring that happens while the activity itself is being conducted, but other monitoring aspects also should be done. And for example, if there are minutes of those discussions that are being posted, somebody, you as an instructor, you have to be able to keep an eye on what is going on the deliverables, on the schedule, on the progress, and so on. Okay. So from a conflict resolution, this is, as I said, even from an industry point of view, this ability to work in teams is definitely an important skill that they have to develop. And we have to, mention that there are conflicts that are going to happen. How do you deal with it, right? So this is something that has to be facilitated through specific conflict resolution strategies, mediate the disputes, in a very constructive manner, right? So give them tools. So saying that, how do you, there are decision-making tools, right? The fishbone diagram, for example, which kind of tries to tell you what needs to be done. How do you choose a strategy, right? The Delphi principle of decision making and so on. So if you look around, lots of decision making strategies that are there, that are available, that are used in practice. So go through some of them and try to use them actually in ensuring that the decision making is done in a way which is collaborative in nature. Okay. And another challenge that as an instructor that you will face is to promote equitable participation, right? So how do you prevent people from team members from switching off, right? So you have to ensure that all voices are heard and all contributions are valued, which means that as an instructor you have to incorporate every opportunity and give opportunity for everybody to contribute constructively, which eventually contributes to the success of the project and which contributes to the grade in the project, especially in a learning environment. Providing timely feedback is imperative, right? So it is not good enough that some conflict is reported today and then as a course instructor you intervene on it 1 week later or 2 weeks later, or somehow miss it because you didn't get a time to look at it, right? So these are some things that have to be avoided, and providing timely feedback is both very important, both on the group activities as well as the progress of the group activity. Now, assessment in collaborative settings is definitely an important component element. So you have to have individual accountability, right? So to ensure that they are progressing forward. So this individual quizzes or exams on the group content, typically I tend to do it towards the end. It may not make sense to do it in between while the project is in progress. Sometimes peer evaluation also helps, because either in a formal or an informal sense, you have to know who is contributing, who is not contributing. Okay, and the individual reflections on the group process and learning also is important, which means that we have to ensure that the learners know what they are doing, not only what they are doing at an individual capacity, but be aware of what others are doing, right? So they need to be able to reflect and understand how their contributions are also going to make an impact on the overall group's activities. Okay, and of course, as an instructor, you also have to be quite observant and look at the extent to which each individual is contributing, which is what I was saying, right? So you have to mingle with the groups as well, and if that whole group activity is not happening in a big classroom kind of a thing, another useful thing that I have found, I practice it myself, is to set up a weekly cadence of interacting with the groups, just to touch base and just to nudge them, right? Every week I tend to spend even 10 minutes with the team, so the team also knows that they are being talked to, and they can flag any issues that they are having. And as an instructor, as I said, you need to be able to observe. This also gives you an opportunity to observe the individuals as well, to what extent they are contributing. We have to have overall group accountability as well, which means within the group projects there will be presentations, there will be reports which they are collectively responsible for. Okay, so which means that these are the deliverables where you really don't put the individual names. We say group number this is what the activity is, and as a group, how are they progressing, what are the deliverables, what are the timelines, are they sticking to the schedule, and so on. And as we spoke, we need to have rubrics for assessing teamwork, communication, shared outcomes, and so on. Okay, in fact, when we are coming up with the overall grading scheme, there has to be components which you can say that say 50% of the grade will be which will be same for the entire group, and 50% will be based on individual contributions of the group, right? So you can even increase it that 50% to 60%, but anything beyond 60% is something that I would discourage, because the moment you make it say 75-80% is based on the group activity, then the other challenge that I talked about, people who are scared that they may jeopardize the project, they may step back and let the people who are actually doing good work to take over the project. So we want to strike a balance between the success of the group versus the learning opportunity for the individuals. So, which is where the balanced approach will be quite useful, and balance tracking is also important here. So, when we talk about collaborative learning, broadly we are saying that these are becoming an imperative component of all learning activities in every course. In fact, to the extent that it might be a good idea to say that especially for advanced elective courses, collaborative group projects are mandatory components. And of course, this does, it requires careful planning and participation from the instructors. And instructors play a very crucial role, right? We cannot assume that this is a group activity, they will figure it out and complete it. That may indeed be quite counterproductive and may not really fulfill the learning objectives of that particular group activity.